Hi, welcome back to our channel, and in this video I'm going to teach you how to animate a character. So this isn't going to be a how-to tutorial. I'm not anymore going to teach you how to use Animate, for example, or After Effects into how to animate a character using those software. What I'm about to teach is more of the fundamentals in animating a character. So whether you're animating frame by frame, using a rig, or After Effects, you can use these concepts. There are 6 main key poses in a character action. And that is first, the starting pose. Second is the anticipation. Third is the action itself. Fourth is the overshoot. Fifth is the recoil. And sixth is the settle pose. Let's use this samurai slashing animation as our main example. First is the starting pose. It is the pose that you start with. The second is the anticipation. It is usually in the opposite direction compared to your action. So in this case, the action is the slash itself, which is in an upward forward direction. So the anticipation is in the opposite direction of that, which would be in a downward forward direction. You can think of it like you are gathering energy or strength to perform any action. So for example, if you're going to punch, you're not going to punch like this. There's no power in that kind of move. Typically, your arm goes back first, gathering as much energy as it can, and then goes forward. So going back to our animation example, since this is the action, this will be our anticipation pose. The third is the action itself. In this case, it's the slash pose. Fourth is the overshoot. It is a little bit over than the action pose. There's usually an overshoot when nothing is receiving the action. For example, if you're punching in the air, since you're hitting nothing, the force goes a little bit more forward than it should. So going back to our animation example, this will be our overshoot pose. Fifth is the recoil. The recoil happens as a reaction to the overshoot. So for example, punching in the air, since the force goes a little bit extra, since we're not hitting anything, the body tries to balance and moves back a little bit as a reaction. So the recoil is a little bit less than the action itself. So if this is our action pose and this is our overshoot, then this will be our recoil. Sixth is the settle pose. So when you punch, your hand doesn't remain in a punching pose. You get tired eventually, right? So after you punch, naturally you go back to a more relaxed pose. So after you punch, a more relaxed pose, and this pose is called the settle pose. So going back to our animation, after the slash, he will have his hand go down. So now that we have the key poses, the next step is the in-betweens. So this is just the basics. Not all action has all those key poses. There are some action where you don't need an overshoot or recoil. And there are some actions where you could combine these key poses. But what I notice is that almost all action always has an anticipation pose, no matter how little. Let's take, for example, standing up. So I'm going to demonstrate standing up. And as you can see, I'm gonna do that on the side view. And as you can see, there will always be an anticipation. I tried my best to minimize the anticipation pose, but no matter how hard I try, I cannot completely eliminate it. I could only minimize it, but it's always there. So take a look at this animation. This animation has a starting pose, which is the sitting position. It has an anticipation pose, and the action is the standing up itself. You also notice that the action and the settle pose are the same. In this case, we can combine the action and the settle pose. So this animation doesn't have an overshoot or recoil because the speed or force isn't enough to justify an overshoot. But if you want to exaggerate, because this is an animation, of course you can exaggerate if you want. So let's make the standing up action really fast to have an overshoot. This is what it would look like. How about we add recoil to this? Then this is what it would look like. Another question that needs to be asked is the anticipation always in the opposite direction compared to the action? To answer that question, let's take a look at another example, which is a head turn. You may think that a head turn doesn't have an anticipation pose, but it has. So the anticipation of the head turn is not like this. Although this is the opposite direction of the action, it looks kind of weird. You don't turn your head like this. So if this is your starting pose and this is the action, how do we do the anticipation? You would have it in a downward movement. This way, the overall action is still going to the right, but by having a downward movement, you have your opposite direction. From starting pose to anticipation, you're going down. From anticipation to the action, you're going up. You can add an overshoot if you want. This would make the character a bit shocked. But if you want a more relaxed action, you don't need to add the overshoot pose anymore. So that's it for this YouTube video. I hope you learned something today. If you like this video, please give us a thumbs up and subscribe if you want to. If you want to learn more about frame-by-frame animation, we have Skillshare classes for beginners where we have included the step-by-step lessons from how to use the software and how to use that to animate. If you're also interested in learning After Effects, we have a Class 101 course. It's a long course for beginners and intermediates. If you're interested in any of these, I will leave all links in the description below. That's it for now. Thank you so much for watching. Thank you for your time, and I hope to see you on the next video.